Getting out of an abusive relationship early makes a huge difference.
And I'm proud to say I did come in as a victim, but I am a survivor.
Then I could see my mom. My mom was walking toward us. And I got excited. And it was like, there's my mom. And then he didn't stop.
I'm trying to keep it together, I said. I gave in to the tears. And I hated that.
It's not necessarily the easiest process. It's not necessarily the prettiest process, but it is the most effective process. Like, you can do this. I'm going to tell you 100% you can do this, and you're so worth it to do this.
I'm sure losing any child is a real arrow through your heart, but you know, she was great. She was a friend and a family member and our daughter.
It feels just as good the 10th time as it did the first time, to have one of your citizens that you're out there protecting walk up and tell you thank you.
There is one thing stronger in me than fear, and that's my determination. Welcome back. This is Jen Lee, the creator and host of I Need Blue, Survivors Talk Surviving. Visit www.ineedblue.net for additional stories. As you listen, if the message moves you, share it with friends and family. The more we share, the more we learn, the more we can help. Please note, I Need Blue does contain sensitive topics which could be triggering. Please seek help if needed. Today, we continue our discussion about addiction. Robbie has been in recovery since September 18th, 2018, and he is proud to let you know, as he should be. He is going to share his story about being born into a family riddled with alcohol and drug addiction. His childhood included foster care, at times an absent mom, and the death of 2 close family members. Robbie shares his journey of survival, which includes the moment he was introduced to Space Coast Recovery. From there, I will let him tell you about the 1-year agreement he made with himself. My second guest today, Barbie Thrower, is the Executive Director and President of Space Coast Recovery, and she has held that position since October of 2013. Space Coast Recovery was established in 1969 and has been at the forefront of addiction treatment services in Brevard County, Florida. She is part of Robbie's journey, and together with Space Coast Recovery, they are dedicated to empowering others to choose recovery from addiction. To learn more about Space Coast Recovery in Brevard County, Florida, visit www.spacecoastrecovery.com. Again, for additional information, spacecoastrecovery.com. I would like to thank both of my special guests today, Robbie and Barbie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Jen, for having Robbie on I today. I'm the director for Space Coast Recovery. I've been the director here for a little over 8 years. I had come from the state attorney's office, and that's where I thought I was going to retire, but God had other plans for me. I have a passion for drug addiction and alcoholism, for the fact of I've lost 2 marriages because of addiction. I lost one of my very best friends because of addiction. So once I received my master's degree in psychology, I had to have a niche. And I decided that it was going to be in substance abuse counseling. God had his hand in all that. And here I am 8 years later running this nonprofit in Cocoa. And today I have a great honor to have one of my top-notch counselors here at Space Coast Recovery. And he's going to tell us his story.
My name's Robbie. I'm a recovering addict, and I've been clean since September 18th, 2018. Whenever I tell my story, I always say, ever since I can remember, my life has been dominated by drugs and alcohol. My first memory is being taken by HRS, which is now DCF, from my parents. Grew up with 2 sisters and my older brother. The first thing I can remember in my life is when HRS came to the house. and I had no idea what was going on. I was really confused. Just remember these people came in. My mom started freaking out and arguing. My dad was kind of just sitting there, and they were telling us to pack up our stuff and get our clothes and the things we need. And I just knew something was wrong. And my sisters, they were kind of going along with it. With me, I ran and I hid. I think I said I ran and I hid in the closet. And I just remember them looking for me, and I was scared. And eventually they found me. And I can remember walking down that driveway, getting in the back of that car and just looking out the back of the car. I remember just crying, not knowing what was going on. And then we were gone. So we went to foster care. We were living in Palm Bay at the time, but foster care was in Rockledge. My sister has better memory than I do, but the foster parent of the time, she was pretty abusive. For myself, I remember being put in the corner for extended periods of time with my nose in the corner for my sister says 10 hours. I would like to think it wasn't 10 hours, but I remember it being a long time. But one thing I do remember was one time she had bought light bulbs for the house. And I was 5. So I was 5. My older sister was 7. My younger sister was 2. And my brother was 9. But I was a 5-year-old kid. And I took the light bulb and I think I put it up and said, made a little joke about having boobies or something. And this lady had me unzip my pants, stuff light bulbs in my pants near my private, and taped light bulbs to my chest and had me walk around the neighborhood with light bulbs attached to my body to teach me a lesson. And my sister told me how she would give my little sister cold showers. And every time me and my brother would come in the house with dirty shoes on, she would make us strip down out back and hose us down with a hose. Those ones are a little more vague to me, but my sister told me about it. So after spending 2 years in there with visitation, seeing my parents back and forth, sometimes it was just my dad, sometimes it was just my mom, sometimes it was both of them. Eventually we moved back with my parents and they got a house over in O'Galley in Melbourne, Florida, where I grew up. And a short time after we got out of where we returned home to our parents, my mother was battling with addiction, crack addiction. And we weren't in the best of neighborhoods, but the okay side of the worst neighborhoods across US 1. But the other side of US 1 was very drugs everywhere. There was drug dealers and prostitution and guns. And my mom was, like I said, addicted to crack cocaine. And she was a great mom when she was home, right? She would be there. We had strict rules. We had to be down for dinner. We all sit at the dinner table, say grace. We had to be at home by a certain time every night, and we had chores. And so there was structure. It was on and off structure because when my mom, she would relapse or go use again, and she would go right across the street to that bad neighborhood. My mom received many prostitution charges over the course of my life. So when we got out of foster care, I was about 7 or 8. My brother was around 12, and he was the only one old enough to really understand what was going on with my mom at the time. I don't know if he completely understood, but he knew something was wrong. And he would go and get on his bike and ride across the interstate, across US 1, and go try to find my mom. And so the solution of that was they decided to send my brother to live with my mother's mom, her grandmother in Ocala. She was an alcoholic. And I've never heard any good stories about my grandma. Everything I've heard was just extremely bad, abusive. I heard she was into black magic and bikers, and the stories my mom would tell about her trauma, about her mom, it just never added up. And I never can really ask too many questions, but I would always think, like, if your mom was such a bad mother to you, why would sending your son, my brother, to her in a time of trouble, why would that be the solution? But that's just a stone that's never been unturned, and today I don't really dig into any of it. My grandmother was driving drunk with my brother in the vehicle, and they hit a tree, and they both died on impact when he was 12 years old. And I remember and I forget exactly when, but we would go visit, me and my sisters, and her husband was very abusive, and none of us really liked him. He used to, I don't have specific memories, but I just remember that guy, her husband, none of us liked him. We were all scared of him. There was anything good came around when he was around. But this guy shows up at our door in Melbourne one night. It was late night. I was young, so I don't know. And I just thought, what the heck is this guy doing here? We had a babysitter at the time, which was actually another family was living in our spare bedroom, like a family of 4 living out of 1 bedroom in our house to help pay rent, I suppose. And this lady, our babysitter / roommate, started bawling, crying, and just looking over at us. And I knew something was wrong. Why is this guy at the house? And why is he telling her this? And what is going on? My dad comes home. He's in tears, and he ended up telling us that our brother had passed away. And I just remember after that, for weeks, me and my 2 sisters would all sleep in my dad's room, and they would play that "Arms of an Angel" song. I just always remember hearing it on TV. That's like a pet rescue commercial. They would play that, "In the arms of," that song. I'm not a very good singer, but I would cry. I would like get teared up just if I heard that song in the background. Just it would like trigger I don't know. I would just watching like them rescue dogs, but hearing that song would always make me tear up. So I stopped listening to it. I don't know what would happen if I listened to it today, but
Today's episode is sponsored by Space Coast Recovery. Since 1969, Space Coast Recovery is dedicated to empowering their clients to choose recovery from addiction.
so after that, my mom would be in and out of jail, in and out of the streets. She would always come back to the house periodically. And I used to fight for her to come back home. Like my dad would slam the door, they would argue. I'd be like, "That's Mom, you gotta let her in, you gotta let her in." And I just remember it was like on and off, on and off. And so she'd be right across the street, within a mile radius, doing her addiction, and then come home all crazy out of her mind and make all these accusations, telling me that she has pictures of my sisters being raped and all this stuff, and just out of her mind. And just it got to the point where I got fed up with it too. Me and my sisters, like I would be laying there watching TV on the couch right by the front door by the windows, and I would hear a knock, and I'd peek up, and I would always have fear that it was my mom. And if it was my mom, I would roll off that couch and tuck myself right up under the crevice of the couch to where she couldn't see if she looked through the windows, because I just didn't want to even interact. Because every time she came around, it was always something, some crazy accusations. I remember one time she came in and was playing the video games on the computer, and she would just be out of her mind as splash water into the back of the computer, claiming that they're listening or whoever, or this or that, and the FBI and all that kind of stuff. And so that's kind of the story of it, of our family dynamic for me and my sisters growing up. My older sister took on the motherly role. She really raised her, and one of my buddies in the neighborhood, great friend, my best friend to this day, is a good guy. Without him and my older sister, they were my parents, really. I feel like without them, I don't know what would have happened to me. And that guy will be, forever a brother to me. I got into video games a lot as a kid. Video games and basketball was my life. Video games, basketball, school. That's all Robbie did. That's all I did ever. And I've liked video games a lot. And I guess it's the first sign of addiction. My dad, I remember he threw away one of my computer games, Warcraft 3. And I played it so much that I came home one day and it wasn't on the computer. And I remember going out to the trash and having to dig it out of the trash can, and him being real mad with me for playing it too much. And so that was just one thing when I look back of like an escape, that I was trying to escape. I really didn't start using until I was 15, 16, probably 10th grade, halfway through 9th grade. Because like I said, I was really big into basketball. I ended up getting cut from the freshman team. We had a great junior high team, 8th grade. We had an undefeated team. We had our core guys, like we were a unit. We were the basketball players. Everybody in the school, they knew who we were. Like that was just who we were. That was my identity. We were best friends. We all did it. We did everything together. We hung out together. We played basketball together. We went out. Whatever kids do, we were doing it, and that was who I was. We move on to high school, and the first day of tryouts, meaning there's 3 rounds of tryouts. I said a slick remark to one of the guys during tryouts because we were doing this 3-on-3 thing, and I was trying to look good for the coaches, and this kid just kept not giving me the ball and kept doing what I thought was stupid things with the ball. So I told him, I said something slick. It wasn't nice. I think I just said, "You suck." And I turned my head over my shoulder, and the coach was standing right there. He just shook his head and walked away. I was like, well, that's not good. And I got cut, very first cut. And there was a lot of guys out there that had no business on a basketball court that made the very first cut over me. So a couple of weeks went on, and the JV coach saw me walking through the halls in school and said, "Hey, Robbie Gray, how's practice going? How's that freshman team going?" Whatever he said. I said, "Are you serious?" He said, What do you mean?" I said, "I got cut. First round, the very first round." He said, "Yeah, right." He started joking and laughing. He's like, "No, really, how's practice going?" I said, "Man, I'm dead serious." The JV coach was like, he just apologized. He was so sorry for me. He's like, I know how much it means to you. You're a great player. He's like, "I'm going to see about getting you on the JV team, and just don't give up and keep doing what you do." I sat all freshman year sitting, watching all my best friends, all my buddies go to practice and play basketball games, and I have to sit on the sideline and just watch from afar. And that's when I started to drink, smoke weed. That's when my addiction first started. I just started to dabble. That might be the worst. That was a tough year. That was like I said, basketball was my life, and I lost it for that year.
And you were like 15, 16?
Yeah, freshman year. Yeah, that's when I started to drink and hang out with a different group of kids. And by 10th grade year, I made the team, but I had resentments towards the whole organization of basketball. 10th grade year went well. And then 11th grade year, that's when it started to get out of hand. I started taking pills and things like that, and I would show up to practice high on weed, and my teammates would say something to me, and I would say, "I'm high, but I could still beat you, and I watch what I do here on the court and all this stuff." And I was just arrogant. I was just arrogant and didn't care. And I had coaches that would tell me, "Hey, man, like," because I used to look back, when I first started to get clean, I used to look back on my life and say, "Man, I wish somebody would have I wish I would have had guidance. I wish somebody would have just grabbed me up and said, 'This is the way.'" Because I felt like I didn't have that with my parents. But looking back, I definitely had that. There was people in my life that tried to pull me up, tried to say, "Hey, Robbie, that's not it. That's going to lead you down the back." And I just thought, yeah, whatever. You have no idea. I wasn't accepting of any help. I wasn't able to accept any guidance. I had no respect for authority or any type of, or I didn't know how to accept, love. I didn't know how to accept any type of compassion or guidance or from anybody. It was just Robbie against the world. And that led me down a dark path. But I say that because before my addiction got out of control, the same behaviors and the same ways of thinking, I didn't feel like anybody ever cared about me. I felt like I had to do everything on my own. That was the only way it was going to get done. I didn't know how to accept love. So throughout high school, my mom would be back and forth as she was throughout my entire childhood. Her and my dad, I think, officially got a divorce back when I was 12. We used to always act, because their relationship was always the same dynamic. It was off on, off on. His fault, her fault. They both hate each other. There's 2 different narratives. My mom says it was all him. My dad says it was all her. You never know what to believe. Senior year, I was captain of the basketball team. The other captain of the team, there's 2 of us, he got injured. I had to put a lot of pressure on myself to make the team successful or just make us good. And I would always get on the guys during practice and want to push us to be better. And I built up all this unneeded pressure. I was hard on the people around me. If people were slacking off in practice, I would get on them. I say that because it became unmanageable for me. It became something that was impossible to deal with. And you just isolate. I just isolated myself from life, really. I was on a level of my own that was just complete delusion. My mom got out of prison. She did 18 months in prison, and she was getting out Christmas break of my senior year. For whatever reason, like my heart was like, Mom, I'm gonna get her back home. She's gonna do it this time. I'm a little more mature. I'd been a couple years. I've been like, she's been writing me. She'd always write and send letters, and I was like, you know what? She's coming home, and she's gonna be a mom. I wanted my mom home, and I was willing to fight my dad about it. He's not gonna say no. And so I had that conversation. I said, Mom's coming home. She's coming right here in this house. I don't care what you say. Like, we have to do this. He was all against it because we had done this charade many a times, arguing back and forth about she's coming home. Don't let her in. It's my mom. I'm going to let her in. What are you talking about? He said, okay, look, just take her. So we had a duplex. He kind of stayed on one side of the house and all us kids stayed on the other. And we kind of just, throughout my entire childhood, we did whatever we want. My dad was rarely home. And when he was, he just stayed on that side. There was a wall in between it. He kept the lights on. He put a little food in the fridge. We had shelter and food. But as far as structure and parenting, that wasn't there. It was just kind of fend for yourself. So it was obviously the party house. But so my mom comes home, Christmas break of my senior year. And I decide, I stay at home with her. I'd done this before where I kind of just stay with her 24/7. And I just remember when she was home that we would lay on the couch, she'd rub my back and, just kind of be a mom. And like, I loved that. Like I needed that. I just remember like when she would be there and we could just lay together and just to feel that nurture, such a foreign feeling. But when I felt it, I knew that it was missing and I knew I needed it and I loved it. And that's my mom. So I dropped out of school halfway through my senior year, captain of the basketball team. And I just quit. I just never went back. And I think I told the narrative of like, oh, my mom's out of prison. I'm going to stay home with her. But like I said, that wasn't the whole truth. I was taking Xanax and partying and I was done. And it was a good way out. It made it look like, okay, that's a good reason. I babysat my mom, if you will. And I remember one day, and this has happened many times, but you don't have to babysit me. I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to go to the beach today. I'm going to get some shells. And she had went to the beach. She always did that kind of stuff. Go collect a bunch of shells, bring them home, and do whatever she did with them. And I said, you sure? I said, I'll go with you. And she said, no, you don't need to go with me. I'll be all right. I promise. I love you. I'll be home. I said, okay. And she never came home, as she did it many times. If it was going to the store to get a gallon of milk or this or that, I'll be right back. You can go get some cigarettes. Gone for a month. Gone for 2 weeks, pop back up out of her mind. And that was the story. On and off, on and off, on and off. Relapse, streets, home, crazy at home, drive us crazy, gone, jail, back. So after I dropped out, that's when things started to get real bad for me and my addiction. I started using heavier drugs. The first serious drug I did was cough medicine. And we would take that stuff all the time, just get out of our minds. I was always looking for an escape. Because I remember I went to the hospital and I had to go get my stomach pumped. That was like the first real episode of my physical problems with myself over substance abuse. It progressed into, pain pills and cocaine. And as I grew up, I would always promise myself I would never do that drug. That was my mom's drug. I definitely would never do that. I'll definitely never shoot up. I'll definitely never do meth. Never. I'll never do that. That's one thing I'll never do. And every time I did that cough medicine that we would take all the time, one time I was on that and my mom was staying at the house, literally right across the street from our house, like the neighbor. She was staying with this lady and she was over there on a crack binge and I knew what she was doing. And in my psychedelic state, came to a revelation of, I know how I can cure my mom of her crack addiction. I'll go over there, smoke it with her, and then tell her in her face, is this what you want for your kids? And that's exactly what I did. I went over there, played a little game, said, hey, what are you doing, this, that? I said, oh, here, let me try that. And the first time I ever did cocaine, I smoked crack with my mom at 16 years old. And I don't even like to say that because I know how much that hurts her to this day. And she's apologized so many times for that. One time I was at the gas station up by the house and I ran into my mom and she told me, I don't want you to worry. Every time I don't know how to say this without sounding vulgar. Every time I perform oral sex for drugs, I slip a condom in my mouth, so I'm really not doing it. Look, and she popped a condom in her mouth and showed me how she would sneakily put a condom in her mouth so she never had to have skin-to-skin contact with her Johns. And I was like, what the Yeah. But bless her heart. I hate to even tell this because, it is my story and it's the reality of my life. And my mom is also a recovering addict and she deserves, opportunity and chance for recoveries too. So it's really tough for me to say this because I don't want to hurt her anymore because she's full of pain as all of us in recovery are. And she's had trauma and her mom put her through a lot. So I don't say this because I hold a resentment or blame my mom, but this is just the reality of my story. There's one more promise that I could keep to myself. When Robbie said I never will do this drug or that drug, I also told myself I would never be the parent to my child as my mom was to me. I can still do that. I can still do that because there's a cycle, and that's the one thing I did. I made that promise. I made that promise to myself before, and when my daughter was born, 2 months after she was born, I relapsed, got a DUI, and went to jail. And that's when I came to Space Coast Recovery. So I did 3 months in jail and then 6 months in recovery or in Space Coast Recovery, where I had some contact. And Barbie and Luann, bless their hearts, they would allow me to have my newborn daughter here and buy her a jumping little thing and a walker and stuff like that. And they promoted me being a father, and they loved it when Nora came, and that meant the world to me. So that's what we do here at Space Coast Recovery, things like that. When I took an honest look at myself, I said, Robbie, you're doing exactly what you promised yourself you want to do. You just spent 9 months out of the first year of your daughter's life not in the house with her. Sounds kind of familiar. Sounds just like when your mom was not there and gone and back and gone and back. Sounds like you're about to do the same exact thing. And I'm not willing to do that. I won't live with myself to do that. I can't. To skip all the overdoses and the Baker Acts and the ICUs that I've been through my addiction, through doing everything I could get my hands on to escape reality. I mean, we can sit here and talk about that kind of stuff all day. All the self-inflicted trauma from not being willing to work a program of recovery and just compounding my pain and trauma through lack of willingness to look at myself.
The self-inflicted, trauma that you put on yourself is real, and it's hard for people who aren't in your shoes to understand that. Robbie is a survivor of addiction. There was a time when he didn't have hope. There was no one to listen, and he started to accept substance abuse, prison, and homelessness was his life, his only choice. Space Coast Recovery was established in 1969 and has been at the forefront of addiction treatment services in Brevard County, Florida. Robbie found love, compassion, his sponsor, and 12 steps. He found the hope he was searching for. He realized he had a choice when it came to his life, and Space Coast Recovery offered him hope and opportunity. If you or someone you love is struggling with addiction, reach out to Space Coast Recovery today. They can be found at www.spacecoastrecovery.com or call them at 321-632-5958. Again, that's 321-632-5958. Space Coast Recovery is dedicated to empowering their clients to choose recovery from addiction.
I enjoy telling this. It's complete madness. So in the same period of time, this was right before my daughter was born. And Nicole's pregnant. I'm putting all this pressure on myself to be a father, to be a good father. Can I be a father? Do I even have it in me? Has anybody been a parent to me? So am I even able? All these insecurities, like that's the fear of not being good enough to be a dad, like was driving my life, and it drove me to relapse. But one day, in the midst of argument or something with Nicole, because we were both insecure, young, having a child, we got into argument about something. I can't recall what it was. I just decided to go, to get out of the house and to go, because I have a good wife, a good girl. She graduated college. She's good. She just walked the path her entire life, and I was always conscious that she was a good egg and I wasn't. So I would try my best to protect her from myself, which is madness. So in one of those nights, I'm high, I'm using, and I have no money. Started off in Melbourne, and I go to a 7-Eleven with a PlayStation 4, and I plug this thing into the outlet right in front of the front door, and with no TV or anything. It's a video game console, and you need a TV to prove that it works. But I'm out here trying to sell the PS4 to anybody who's willing to buy it. So that anybody walking, people are looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, look, it works. Hitting the on and off button, showing the disc tray works. Everybody's just looking at me like I'm a madman. Like, come on, I'm trying to, sell it for dirt cheap. My friend that I grew up with that I mentioned earlier, I called him and he came pick me up, and I said, you want to buy the PlayStation? He's like, what's wrong with you? He's like, here, I'll give you some money. Keep your PlayStation. I don't know what the hell you're doing, but what do you need? I said, I need a ride to Cape Canaveral, because that's where I've been living before, and I knew just how to get drugs there. So he took me to Cape. So I go to Cape. I go back to my old apartment complex that I just completely compromised and got kicked out of, partying with every person of every apartment. There was like 16 different little apartments there, and probably 10 of them were drug users, or alcoholics, and I was intermingling with all of them. And I started to use IV drugs, meth, what I thought was meth on the streets today. You don't know what it is. It could be bath salt. It could be some fabricated, who knows. And I'm doing that for hours in the laundry room, sweating bullets down there, trying to inject drugs into my meth into my leg. And my leg swells up like 3 times the size of what it should be. And I'm just sitting there sweating bullets, delusional, out of my mind, talking to people who aren't there. My old neighbor, they knew me, they knew Nicole, and they called Nicole, and they're like, you got to come get him. And me and Nicole would have just argued, that day. And it's still early. It's like 6 o'clock maybe. She comes to pick me up, and I'm completely out of my mind. I'm in the front seat in the passenger, but I'm ripping up the back seat, accusing people of being in the vehicle that aren't there. It's an empty car, but I'm trying to find people underneath the seat cushions in a sedan. So we go to the hospital, goes inside and tells the people, like, this guy's crazy. You need to come get him. And these security guards, like 3 big guys, they come out and they're like, sir, you need to come in the building. And she's trying to get me Baker acted. And I just said the first thing that come to mind. I said, no, I didn't ask for any help. I'm just in the parking lot. I'm going to go ahead and walk away. I was like, you can't Baker act me unless I ask for it. And they're like, well, I guess he's kind of right. And I was like, oh, there it is. And I just walked. So I escaped, even though I really needed it. A Baker Act is an involuntary 72-hour hold because you're a danger to yourself or somebody else, or suicidal. If somebody's concerned about your well-being, they can call or take you to a hospital or call the police and say you're a danger to yourself, and then they'll hold you for 72 hours until they clear you through a doctor that says you're safe to re-enter society. And I've had that happen to me a couple of times. Being in the hospital and pulling out the IVs and trying to refuse treatment after an overdose, you come to, and you're trying to get out of there to go get high more, and they Baker Act you. They say, oh, strap them in. They strap you to the bed, and you're not leaving. That's just not going to happen. They were trying to get a Baker Act on me, and I dodged it, and my leg's swollen, remind you, and I'm dragging my leg, and I don't know where I'm going to go. My mom lives in Cape Canaveral. In my head, I'm going to hit the beach and just walk north on the beach until I get to where my mom lives. I'm walking up the beach, and I'm looking deranged. I'm sweating. I'm looking crazy. I've just done a lot of methamphetamine, way too much. I don't know if it was my paranoia or I'm pretty sure this happened, but as I'm walking up the boardwalk, like people are looking at me with their kids and they're like pulling their children away from me. I take a seat on the beach and I'm like peeking through my own arms. I sit there with my arms crossed and looking up. I just left my apartment with my pregnant wife, run over to Cape Canaveral to get high. They kick me out of the apartment complex. She picks me up, tries to get me Baker acted. I'm just going. I'm going nowhere. I have no idea where I'm going, but I'm just going. Only thing I get to compute in my mind is mom lives in Cape Canaveral. You can go there. Somehow or not, I get there and I'm knocking on the door. I'm knocking on the door and nobody's answering. She's not home, but in my head, her, my fiance, Nicole, my mom's boyfriend are in there and I can hear them talking about me. And I can hear him talking about me and I can hear him talking about how are they gonna tell me that the baby isn't mine? How are they gonna break this to me? I'm like, what? And I'm pounding on the door. I hear you in there. I hear you in there. And I walk away, come back, sit there, realize I'm out of my mind, delusional, talking to people who aren't there. And my phone's not on. My phone is dead. And as I was walking, because I walked a lot this night, I could hear my girlfriend's relatives, because she's Asian, talking to me in a language I don't understand, an Asian language. But the phone's not even on. It's not even powering on. That's the kind of drugs that are out there. I leave my mom's apartment after probably spending 2 hours out there pounding on the door and collecting my thoughts and then thinking it's real, and start walking. And I get stopped by the sheriff. 4 cruisers pulled up. I'm on the sidewalk and they kind of just park and they're like right there and they're all kind of keeping their distance, but they're talking to me. And one of the guys I went to high school with, and he would run into me. He'd be like, Robbie, what are you doing? He's like, every time he saw me, he was like, next time you're going to jail. Like, I can't, keep looking the other way. I can't be out in the streets acting like a madman. Like, what? And so what I tell these guys in my delusion, I said, you know me, my girl's pregnant, I'm about to have my first child, and they just told me that it's not my baby. And I'm freaking out. I was like, that's why I'm like this. And I'm telling them and I'm selling. I think they might have, I don't know if they believe me or what, or I didn't have anything on me. So they couldn't really do anything. And after like going back and forth with them and telling them so elaborate, what I believe to be reality, they just ended up letting me go. They're like, look, go home, be safe. You can't be out here. I'm like, okay. And I thought I just walked into Circle K and asked to use the phone. And she said, Robbie, if you do not leave this store, I'm going to have to call the cops. I said, why are you being like this? What do you mean? She's like, you've been in the store for 2 hours, falling asleep, bumping into people, asking everybody for their phone and asking them for money. I said, what? Like my life flashed before my eyes. I was like, oh, crap. I had no idea. Like, oh, so she lets me use the phone. I called Nicole. I said, you have to come get me. I'm going to go to jail. She said, oh, my God, okay, I'll come. And I go behind the dumpster because I'm worried the cops. I'm just sitting there behind the dumpster for I don't know how long, waiting for Nicole to come. And however long later, and it is dark now, however long later, my mom pulls up with her boyfriend. Oh, God. So I get in with them. I'm like, take me home. They're not like, you're not going home. Your leg is going to, you have an infection in your leg. You need to go to the hospital, this and that. And they get my leg checked out. And I'm being super friendly with all the staff and everything, but I stink like really bad. They don't even want to touch me. I don't think they would touch me. They just looked at it from afar and held their nose and was like, here's the antibiotics. My mom and her boyfriend are begging the doctors to Baker Act me. But I'm happy-go-lucky. I'm like, I don't know what they're talking about. They're trying to give me Baker Act. I don't want to hurt myself. I'm just, I get high. I admit that. But they're like begging me to go to treatment to get help. And I wasn't going for it. They allowed me to smoke a cigarette while they're still in there, pleading with the hospital to get me Baker Acted. And there's one security guy out there with me, and he doesn't want nothing to do with the situation. Kind of watching, kind of not. I'm smoking the cigarette in the wheelchair, and I'm looking back, and I'm like, as soon as this guy turns his head one more time, I'm gone. So I did that. As soon as he would watch me, and then he would like kind of mosey around in a little circle and get his eyes back on me. As soon as he did a turn, I hit the bushes. I hobbled over to the bushes and just hid there behind the bushes. And I hear my mom and her boyfriend and the security, and they're all screaming my name. Oh, Robert, where are you? And I see him driving, and I start walking Start walking down the street, but I'm not on the street. I'm like off in the treed gutter area to where I'm out of sight. So I escaped another Baker Act. My little sister lives in Palm Bay. My dad lives in O'Galley. Now I'm going south because we ran into mom. She's trying to Baker Act me. That's not working. Time to hit the other end of the county on foot with a swollen leg, dragging my leg, picking up every single piece of trash and envelope I see on the side of the road, thinking hopefully there's some money in it or something. Just complete madness. Complete madness. I just walked and walked, and I'm thinking in my head, I was like, I got to be getting close to Melbourne. I get to the 7-Eleven. I'm like, hey, where am I? You're in Rockledge. I'm like, oh, God. I got another, I don't know how many hours of hobbling to do. Like, we're going to call you, Rob. We're going to call you somebody. They call the cops. The cops come there. One cruiser comes there. He's like, oh, you're the guy that left the hospital AMA against medical advice. I'm like, no, that wasn't me. I was like, they wanted me to stay. I didn't want to even be there. Like, whatever. And he's going to give me a ride. I'm like, I'm trying to talk to this guy the whole time. He doesn't want nothing to do with me, which is still miles away from where. And he stops and he pops the door. He said, get out. This is the end of my jurisdiction. So I start hobbling again, and I'm not going to make it. I'm not making it anywhere. I take a seat on the sidewalk, try to gather my energy, hop back up, try to walk, make it maybe 20 more feet, and have to hit the sidewalk again. I'm like, this is it. This is it. And now the sun's up. The sun had came up. You're on US 1. Cars are flying by. Full traffic. You're going to die laying on a sidewalk on US 1 with nothing. Like, this is the way to go, isn't it? There's just nothing around. I can't move. I'm just getting baked by the sun. I'm dehydrated, haven't eaten, and I just can't move. I can't even stand up. And this old couple walked past me, and they walked up, and they want nothing to do with me either, but they're looking at a kid dying. And they, what can we do? I said, can I use your phone? Just make one call. They said, no, but we'll call for you. I said, okay. I gave them the number. They called my dad. He didn't answer, but they left a voicemail. And they just kept walking. And I'm like, well, this is it. I'm going to die right here. I don't know. And talking to people who aren't there, thinking just completely out of my mind. And my dad pulls up. Robert, what the hell are you doing? Get in the van. What the hell? I said, I can't. You got to come pick me up. Can't move. What the hell? He comes, picks me up, throws me in the van, and took me to my little sister's house. And she let me stay there. I say that and I tell that story. That is what that life has to offer. What kind of life is that? Like, what am I doing with myself? But that's the reality of the life I was living. And I say that because today I was that, but today I have a life that means something. Where people are calling me, right? People call me for help or for advice or to be there for them. When I wasn't a person that people could even communicate with, that people had to close the door, that people had to pull their children away or to hide from or to just not even want to touch or communicate with, my voice was not heard. There was no, I would open my mouth and I would say words, and even if they were good, meaningful words, no ears were attentive. Nobody wanted to listen, and for good reason. Who would want to listen to a deranged person? Today, I can look back and say, that's who I was, right? And today, I'm a man who can be there for his daughter, be a good dad, be a good husband, right? Be a husband, marriage. That's crazy. So me and my fiance just got a mortgage on a home in a gated community. I've been clean 3.5 years. 3.5 years of living right, choosing to do right, and doing the right thing. We can build a life. It's possible. Because there was a time where I felt there was no hope, there was no life. And you know what? Robbie Gray is just meant to be a gray, which is prisons, substance abuse, and mediocrity at best. And that's just the family name. And that's just what it is. And that's fine. As long as I do a little bit better than mom and dad, I won at life. That's bullshit. Through Space Coast Recovery, through love, compassion, through my sponsor, 12 Steps, I've found hope, life, and opportunity. And it was scary as hell. And it was the hardest thing to ever do, to ever look at, to have to take an honest look at yourself. But it's the most worthwhile thing I've ever done and I'll ever have done in my life. To go from hopeless and not being heard in a short amount of time knowing that opportunity is there if I'm willing to do the work and to dedicate to it, and for people in my life to want me around, because I was a man that people couldn't have around, even if they did want to be a part of my life. But I was always blaming and pointing the finger and blaming circumstances and my upbringing, and there's some validation to it. So that makes it easy, right? There's a little bit of validation to it, but sooner or later, it's like I had to decide that I could either be part of that cycle of my grandma, my mom, and me, and what I was about to do to Nora, my daughter. I could have easily just been a part of that cycle, and people would probably get it. They would understand. It makes sense. Or I could choose something else and believe that something else is possible, that I could forge a new path and a new life through God and through others who have been through similar experiences and know the way. But I was never open-minded enough to take a hand. Earlier I said that I'd always look back and say, man, if somebody would have just gave me an opportunity or just grabbed me by the neck and said, dude, this is the way you do this, do that, then maybe it wouldn't have been that. So I'm victimizing myself. There was always opportunity, but I was in so much pain, I wasn't able to see it, right?
What was the moment like when you became open-minded, to use your word, open-minded to finally understanding this is not the life that I want? I don't want to be the quote gray of Robbie Gray.
I think it was a series of things, but having a daughter, the old clinical supervisor here, I thought she hated me, and I thought she wanted to send me to prison. When I took it, and she was kind of pulling the strings of my life, a little bit, and I was thinking she had ill intentions. But when I really stopped back, reflect, and looked, I firmly believed that this lady wanted nothing but for Robbie to live a life clean and sober. Just for that. She wanted nothing in return. She just wanted to see me do well. And I truly, when I looked at that, I said, this lady doesn't want, that is it. Their entire motive is to see me succeed and to do whatever she can to help me succeed. I believe that it renewed my trust in humanity. Because like I said, it was Robbie against the world. I might entertain some people for a short time, but I didn't really trust and believe in anybody. And through one person really believing in me and just wanting to help me for nothing in return, it kind of unlocked the rest of the world, that there might be something good left in this world. Because I wrote off the world for a long time, and I thought there was nothing good in it, and there was nothing good for me. And there were people, so they're trustworthy to an extent, but not all the way. And I wasn't about to test it to find out, because it hurts. So I say, do whatever it takes to find that one person. It just takes one, and they're out there. There's good people, kind-hearted, loving people that just want you to heal and to succeed and to do better, or whatever it is that you need. They just want that for you, simply to watch you recover. We'll never find it if we can't accept it. We have to be open and to look for it. And it's scary as hell, and it sucks to open that pain to the world. Nothing good will ever have the opportunity to come through it either. Nothing bad will come through, but nothing good will either.
There are people who are afraid of, say, homeless people or people walking around like you, kind of having their own conversations with themselves, and just like the parents who pulled their children away, right? But everybody needs that one special person to help them. So how do those people who are afraid kind of learn not to be afraid and maybe be more compassionate?
You just remember that everybody's a person. You can't speak for everybody and everything, but most people just need love. And most people had a lot of lack of love. And people that are walking around like that, you never know what it is that they've gone through, to their life experience, that have made them and led them to where they're at that day. And we treat people accordingly to what we see. And sometimes we don't see someone at first glance that needs love, compassion, and empathy in the ear. And so we treat them for what we see. And we treat them maybe as crazy, or we're scared of them, and we're doing nothing but providing more evidence to their beliefs against the world, right? You never know when what someone's been through, and every person deserves an equal chance for love and unity and empathy and understanding. And you never know. There's never a magical thing to say or the right thing to say. It's not. You never know when the right timing of what you say or when you say it or how you or what your feelings are towards someone, and that door of love and compassion, when it's the right time, when somebody will hear it, is going to get exactly what they need.
You're right. You know, Deborah, she'll be my story before yours, gives backpacks, you know, full of things that like a female needs, and then backpacks with things filled with what a man needs, and also with the card to Space Coast Recovery, because sometimes maybe they don't know where they can go and be welcome, but to at least have a card that maybe you'll put in your pocket, you know, and then the day will come where you pull it out and be like, Space Coast Recovery, this is where I need to go. But everyone has a story, like you just said.
You know, I totally agree with you and what you're saying, and I've learned that. So my sisters and dealt with all the same things through my childhood as me, and she hasn't done. She's the youngest child, so she hasn't dealt with it the best, and she's still active in addiction, and she's out there in California. And I always try to force feed her recovery for the longest time. And, you know, I just learned along the way that never worked for me. But something I can do, and what I do with her and other people I meet in the world, is just like, 'cause she would come to my house, and I would open the door to her, and then she would like cause a big blow up and try to start an argument to make a reason to escape and leave. You know, I said, you know what, Becca, you can go. It's not going to be because of something that I said or you did, you know, that you're trying to turn this. I said, you could do all that, but I just want you to know, when you're ready, this door and a bed, food, and all the resources I have in my life are available to you when you're ready. And the same thing with like people I run into in the world. If I see it's obvious that they have substance abuse or something like that, I just say, hey, I'm not saying you need to do anything, but if you ever know anybody or you're ever interested in wanting a new way of life, take this card, and, you know, I'll do anything I can for you. And that's it. You know, just saying, hey, there is another way. And if when you're willing and ready, we're here for you.
Yeah, I think what you just said is perfect. And all honesty, can you share with us then how Space Coast Recovery became that resource for you?
Definitely. Space Coast Recovery has been nothing but a blessing and changed my life and turned my life into something I never imagined it would be. I graduated, and about 9 months later, I noticed one of my peers from when I was in treatment was working here just one night a week. And I was like, wow, I didn't know they did that. I didn't know they would hire us or me or anybody. So I just kind of hesitantly like extended myself to the supervisor at the time. I said, hey, you know, just very shy and timid with it, but if there ever was, and I'd be interested in helping out here. And she was like, okay, how about this weekend? I was like, whoa. Like, well, let me think about it. Let me think about it. And I walked away, and about 30 seconds later, I said, yes. And I walked back and I said, you know what? I thought about it. Let's do that. And then I never experienced the empowerment from another person that Space Coast Recovery and Barbie and all the staff here, the facility, the most empowering place and people I've ever experienced in my life. And I'll forever be grateful for this facility, for that, for believing in me and for believing in people, and to provide them with an opportunity for growth. And that's what this place does. And I needed that more than I ever knew I needed it. And to be empowered and to say you can, and that's a great idea, and yeah, try that out. Even maybe if they thought that was a crazy idea, go try it out. Yeah, you do that. And it sparked my spirit and opened my eyes to a beautiful life, and to be given the opportunity to do that for others. That's the greatest thing I've ever experienced, and I get to experience every single day.
I think that's amazing. It puts a smile on my face as I sit here. Let me ask you this. You didn't trust anyone, right? So what made you bring down your wall and trust Barbie and everyone at Space Coast Recovery here in Brevard County?
when I really just took a step back and said, what are their intentions? I'm real good at picking apart things and finding where the ill intent is, or the lack of character, or all that. And that's what I share with these guys all the time. When they get upset and they feel like people are trying to manipulate their lives, or just, I'm like, what do you think we do this for? You think we get off on like telling you can't hang out with this person or this or that, or what do you think the intent is? I said, really, what it boils down to is these people just want to help, so I can continue to be the person I've always been, or I can just accept it, and I can just allow. It's on me to allow people into my life and to speak into my life. You can have the greatest guides and sponsors and mentors in the world, but if we're not allowing people to speak into our lives, it doesn't matter.
Right. Now, there are people listening who are inspired by your story. Taking the first step is scary because you don't really know what to expect. Can you share with us your journey from when you first went to Space Coast Recovery to ease maybe people's anxiety about doing something new?
And this isn't the greatest advice, I think, but this is how it works for me. So I just share my experience. I said, you know what, Robbie, you did 28 years of life, and look what you got. And I just take an honest look, jail, rehab, every single person I loved and care about in my life that I wanted, that I truly loved and cared about, I did nothing but harm them. I've been a hindrance in their lives. That's not good enough. 28 years of that, and that's what I got. I'm going to give 1 year. That's it. That's all. I'm not willing to surrender my entire forever, but I'll give you a year trial run, and I'll do everything, and all suggestions will be followed, and I'll keep the same job, and I'm going to see how I feel. In that year's time of just surrendering and doing it as suggested, my relationship was better than it's ever been. My job, I was showing up to work every day. My bosses wanted me around. I got multiple raises. People wanted me around. My friends counted on me. They wanted to spend time with me. Every aspect of my life was much better than it was in 28 years of doing it my way. And then when I had that evidence and really took the time to look at it, what do you have to lose? And if you're going to do it, why not? Just for giggles, right? Just give it an honest effort, the best you can do. Because most of us, we don't have that in us anymore. We attempt something and we kind of, we tiptoe around it. And that's what an addict does, right? Because we're scared of whatever it is. There's fear. So, and then we want to write it off. I always want to write off the program and act like it didn't work. So give it an honest effort. Go do the best you can and see how you feel after some time. And if you really do that, everybody who's ever done that honestly and thoroughly and dove in will tell you that their life has got tremendously better.
That's great. You said one word there that I think is really impactful and really important, and it was surrender. You basically had to surrender yourself. And I think that is a huge word that honestly had never crossed my mind before. So I learned something. Thank you. Thank you for your honesty through this whole thing. It's very raw, genuine, and happy that you are where you are today.
Barbie is the CEO of Space Coast Recovery, program that saved my life, saved a lot of my best friends' lives, and continues to save lives, and given many people who've gone through the program an opportunity to be a part of the program and to continue the cycle of recovery. And that's how it works. And Barbie's been nothing but selfless and compassionate, and she's a great leader and done everything she can to the best facility and the best tools and resources and the best team to provide recovery for this area. I got nothing but the utmost respect and love for her, for everything she's done in my life and many people in my life.
That's quite the introduction, Barbie, and I am honored Honored to have you as a guest as well. So please share with us your resources, Space Coast Recovery, anything else that you would like to share with us about you, because it sounds like you are one heck of an incredible lady. I love to hear that.
Well, thank you. And Robbie, thank you so much. I'll tell you, it's stories like Robbie that keeps me motivated to stay here and do what I do. I mean, I've seen Robbie from the minute he walked in this door as a client to graduating from college, Nora being one of the best counselors here. I'm just really proud of him. And, there's a lot of stories like that around. We have really great programs here. We have our, licensed level 3 residential program. We're licensed by the state of Florida. We're accredited by CARF. We also have a level 1 outpatient treatment programs. We do that in Titusville and Cocoa and Melbourne. We do the DUI program, and we're also into an exciting new outpatient program as well, just to help as many people in the community here as possible.
That's great. And so from your perspective, what is it like when someone comes to Space Coast Recovery? If they are, again, like I talked about with Robbie, have an anxiety about taking that step, how do you reassure them through your resources that they've made the right decision and you're here to help?
Everybody that walks through that door is broken. It breaks our hearts. So what we do is we just surround them with love. We let them know how important they are. We let them know that we care. Like Robbie said, we have a lot of rules in place, but those rules are there for a reason because it works. It just works. I'm blessed with such an amazing staff here at Space Coast Recovery. We have one of the best teams. We all have one mission, and that's just to help these people out there that are suffering. It's scary out there now. The drugs out there are scary. It's not about getting high or going to jail. It's about staying alive. We just work really hard at just making them, we tell them we love them until they can love themselves.
Now, why would somebody choose Space Coast Recovery versus maybe a different recovery center? What makes you distinct?
One, we're the best at what we do. One of the requirements is they all have to get jobs. So we're not a lockdown facility. All of our treatment's done in the evenings. Everybody, it's a very structured routine. Everybody's up out of their bed with their beds made by 8 a.m. They go to work. They come home. Dinner's at 5 every night. We do all of our groups in the evening, 6 to 7:30. They're required to do 4 AA or NA meetings a week. And then we have lights out. We have curfew and then lights out. And then the day starts again. And the guys, we teach them life skills. They all have chores they have to do. People come in here not knowing how to cook. I've actually learned how to cook here because the guys have to learn how to cook. And you have to cook for 25 people. So everybody gets an opportunity to just, the life skills. Some of them, have never been taught before. We had one client that he wasn't doing his chore, and I asked him why, and he never saw anybody use a broom. He didn't even know how to sweep a floor. So, you have to meet them where they're at when they come in and just help them grow and learn.
How do you provide information to the community? Education. I think that's really the word I'm looking for. Education to the community, whether it be, say, our law enforcement on better ways to handle when they see somebody like Robbie on the side of the road, how to better help them, or even the general public. What type of information, education, classes do you provide?
Well, we have our website is spacecoastrecovery.com. We have open interviews every Tuesday between 2 and 4 where people can walk in off the streets. We don't accept insurance here. We take the homeless, the uninsured, the unemployed, and the indigent. We're partially funded by the Department of Children and Families. So they just pay $150 a week for their treatment here. That includes the room, their board, all their meals. We have liaisons in the jail. If anybody's incarcerated, they set up phone interviews with the clinical team to come in for treatment.
And you are a nonprofit as well?
We are a nonprofit, yes.
how do you get your funding? Like, let's say somebody listening is like, wow, I want to help them so they can help others. How do they go about that?
They can go on our website or our Facebook page at Space Coast Recovery and hit the big red donate button.
You can't miss it, right?
You can't miss it. And we purchased 2 years ago, we purchased a transitional house. And that's pretty exciting for us too. It's got catty corner from Space Coast Recovery. It's 1138 Peachtree. And we applied for a grant with Community Housing Initiative. And the city of Cocoa is working with us, and we're going to begin renovations for that. And that's going to house 5 gentlemen that have satisfactorily graduated from our program. It's a 5-bedroom, 3-bath house, and we're excited about that. It'll be FAR certified. And, because some of these guys, they, don't have a place to go once they graduate from our program successfully. They don't really, it's hard. There's a lot of different challenges out there to find housing. So this transitional house is going to help them when they continue their journey in recovery.
Great. And are your clients men then? Just men?
Yes. Our residential program is just all males. Our outpatients are co-ed though.
So what's the difference then? Like, how outpatient, how does that work?
Outpatient, well, we have through licensing, outpatient is required an hour and a half of substance abuse treatment a week. We do that through the Florida Safety Council. Anybody that gets a DUI in the state of Florida that has to seek treatment, they choose us as their provider in groups in Titusville and Cocoa and Melbourne. And then we're beginning our level 1 outpatient treatment. We're probably going to start them at 2 groups a week. This would be clients that really don't need a residential treatment facility, but whether or not, like, their employer is saying, you have to complete some kind of an outpatient treatment before you can come back to work. Everybody knows somebody. Addiction does not discriminate. So there's different companies that, they need to send their employees for an outpatient program, which wouldn't disrupt their lives.
Wonderful. And you are so right. Addiction does not discriminate. If you are not trying to overcome addiction yourself, chances are you know someone, whether it's a family member or a friend. And I'm hoping this episode today kind of gives you a first step in knowing that Space Coast Recovery is here. You do have an option. And if they were to call Space Coast Recovery, weren't able to come to your facility, you have other resources you direct them to. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, we do.
Okay, that's perfect.
Well, I'm just very proud of the program. I feel actually honored to come to work every day here.
Well, we are blessed to have you as part of our community, so thank you for all you do. And how long has Space Coast Recovery been a part of Brevard County?
Space Coast Recovery was formerly known as Community Treatment Center, and it was established in 1969. So it's been around for a long time. We rebranded about 3 years ago to Space Coast Recovery because the Space Coast is the number 1 Googled words in the nation.
I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. Anybody out there that is lost in addiction or alcoholism, there is a way. And myself is living proof, and plenty of other people are living proof. I know guys that have gotten clean, and I know a guy who got clean at the same time as me and is a millionaire today. That's crazy to me. It still baffles me. And there's business owners and family members and guys that came from the bottom, living in the woods with no place to go, and they just decided one day they had enough, and it's possible, and we do recover together.
Space Coast Recovery in Brevard County understands that you are not alone. If you are struggling with addiction, Space Coast Recovery will welcome you with open arms to provide the love, compassion, hope, and resources to enter recovery. Please reach out to Space Coast Recovery today. They can be reached at www.spacecoastrecovery.com or call them at 321-632-5958. Again, that's 321-632-5958. And take your first step to recovery. Together is really important because you are not alone. And thank you, Robbie. Recovery date, September 18th, 2018. Sounds like a great reason to have cake as well. And Barbie with Space Coast Recovery, I thank both of you for being my special guest today. I am here if you need anything.
All right. Thanks so much, Jen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My name is Jen Lee. I am creator and host of I Need Blue. My episodes can be found at www.ineedblue.net. Plus, my episodes are found on all of your favorite podcast platforms. Remember, you are stronger than you think. Thank you.